Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Communications and Conversations. I'm your host, John Crook. I'm flying in the solo seat today. No guest host, no nothing today. Kind of wanted to do a little bit of a special episode here. Got a really good, interesting one here today. And I think it's really an interesting one, I'm going to say, largely based on the fact of the information that we're going to talk about here, which is going to go and basically it's going to be podcast. I can't even talk today. It's going to be about POC radios and what the Secret Service just found out. News breaking this past week here. And I'm going to clear up some information that some of the other tubers, we'll go ahead and say, have put out there, and ads and stuff like that, really kind of cleaning up that whole mess on there. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that today on the show here. I think it's going to be a really good one. Like I said, I am flying solo in the seat today. I got some other co-hosts lined up. Wally, who's been on last show or two, he'll come back in probably for next week on there. We got some more stuff that we're going to talk about. But I thought this one was a good one to, like I said, to talk about. And what we're talking about is, once again, we're going to talk about POC radios, and we're going to also talk about the vulnerabilities of POC radios. So, like, the whole myth conception about POC radios. That's the big thing. And I bring this point up because it's funny how we've kind of gone full circle, right? We had devices which were like two-way radios and phones for a while. It's called Nextel. You've probably saw me on the back of my old show, Communications and Cigars. We talked about Nextel and, you know, how it was. It was a really cool system and everything. Well, now they've come out with like POC radios, which are push-to-talk over cellular, which is a radio that is cellular-based. And our actual sponsor of Communications Conversation, JJK Communications, actually does have a POC service. So one of the things that they've kind of talked about and said is that, hey, there's a lot of misconceptions about POC radios, and we see a lot of ads for it. So we said, you know, lots of stuff kind of came together on this. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into the core of today's show, let's go ahead and take a moment to recognize our sponsor, JJK Communications. That's right. JJK Communications is a communications service provider. And when they say provider, they're not just saying they're going to go ahead and sell you a radio. They're going to go ahead and sell you some service on one of their JJK Connect towers and stuff like that. No, they are actually a communication service provider. They provide knowledge, experience, service, equipment, hardware, everything that you need in a communications company. That's right. They provide it for you. Have a question about technology, what's going to be the best for there? They will provide education for you. Hey, I need to buy the cool and greatest, newest GMRS capable radio, business band radio, marine band radio, whatever the case may be. JJK Communications can provide that for you. Oh, you have a communications issue. You have a communications problem. You need a solution. JJK Communications can help you with that. Even more so, systems. JJK Communications provides system design and implementation for their customers on there. If you have a question, you want to know more about JJK Communications, head on over to their website, www.jjkcom.com. That's www.jjkcom.com. Check them out on social media, or feel free to give them a call. Area code 715-338-8458. So that's, once again, our sponsor, JJK Communications. Now, let's get into the core of what today is, which is push-to-talk radios. What is push-to-talk? What is POC? What does PTTOC mean? A lot of questions, a lot of buzzwords on there, and today we're going to figure that out. So first of all, let's do some defining, some definitions of what is a PTTOC or a POC radio. So what POC means is push to talk over cellular. That's what POC means. Or PTTOC is same thing, push to talk over cellular. What that really means and what that is it's a device that acts like a two-way radio, but instead of using VHF or UHF or 800 megahertz frequencies or whatever kind of band split it is, it relies on cellular networks or Wi-Fi connected networks to transmit the signal. So when you take that button, when you take the radio, push the button on there, you get your little chirp, you get your little access sound. But what that is that is going down the internet. That is using the cellular networks to go down the internet. And it's basically changing your voice into data streams and sending that data down the line. So is that a problem or anything? No, it's not. It's not at all. POC radios are not horrible. All right. They offer solutions for communications. Do they work greater than a traditional two-way radio system? Technically, yes, they do, right? Because a traditional two-way radio system is limited by the RF signal, right? If your radio cannot reach that tower, okay, then the system isn't going to work. If your towers are not connected or your tower can't broadcast along great range, then you're limited to what that tower can do. So cool, great concepts. POC radios work in that regards there. Do they have nationwide coverage? Well, yeah. One could even say they have worldwide coverage because as long as you have internet connectivity or as long as you have a IP connectivity, you'll be able to go ahead and do that. But they're not perfect in any way, shape, or form. So if you're following us on the YouTube channel side of things versus listening to the podcast, you're going to see a picture pop up of what some POC radios look like. There is numerous different brands out there. There's numerous different models out there. A lot of radios are made on there. Are the majority of radios being made like from like Japan, China, those kind of things? Yeah, there are. They're made all over the place. But you got to understand that for the radios to work in the U.S., at least, it needs to have the U.S. cellular band in there. But in essence, that's what it is. It's a radio that transmits over the cellular bands to establish that communication on there, which, once again, not a problem, not anything wrong with that whatsoever. However, understanding how these work is where we get into the little bit of what I like to call the snake oil cells pitch on it, okay? It's like the movie, I don't know if anybody ever seen it, A Million Ways to Die in the Old West, done by the creator of Family Guy on there. And I love that movie in there because, first of all, I'm not going to hide or anything. I like Family Guy. I like the creator on there. But in the movie, they're at the fair, and he's like trying to sell this product, and part of the product is just this, like, it's this jug. I laugh at it, especially having the medical background on her, because they're taking it or lifting at this jug, right? And they're looking at it, and one of the ingredients in there is little pieces of red flannel. That's one of the ingredients, little pieces of red flannel. And I laugh at that because it's just like, okay, it's like it's snake oil is kind of really what it is, the term snake oil. And if you're not familiar with snake oil, it was always like someone is just trying to sell you something that may not be correct, may not be what am I trying to say here, like truthful. It may be like, oh, this works, but it really doesn't work. So that's where kind of the POC things come into. You hear these companies out there that say, oh, they work everywhere. No, they don't. Okay, they don't. Okay, you sell your phone, doesn't work everywhere. If your cell phone works everywhere, then these radios would work everywhere. Your cell phone doesn't work everywhere. These POC radios aren't going to work everywhere. Some of the YouTubers that have played with these radios, and I will remain nameless, but I'm sure people can go ahead and figure out names and stuff like that on there. Let's just have them stick to amateur or other things on there, not venture into the commercial world on things. But they were like, oh, these things work great. I mean, they do. They work hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Well, yeah, they do. They do. Okay? I have played with the JJK Elite ones, and they do. I've been in Florida, and I've talked back to my family in Wisconsin. And I've been in Oregon, and I've talked to people in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Florida all at the same time. They work great. They do work great. But this is where we get into the snake oil part of things, is that when you don't have infrastructure, when you don't have access of these radios and these devices, guess what? You are not going to have coverage of those devices. Now, one of these quote-unquote companies, and if you're watching on the tube, I get them wrong there. If you're watching on the tube here, and just saw me do the quote-unquote finger air quotes, said, oh, during these hurricanes, now mind you, these hurricanes, the ones in the Carolinas, this is the ones I'm referring to, oh, blank POC radios worked. BS. BS. I'm calling BS. And the reason I'm calling BS on there is because when you lost network connectivity from these cell networks, you lost your connectivity. I find it hard to believe that public safety officials who had no cellular service, had no radio comms in some places on there, not everywhere, not all the time, but they did lose communications in certain things. Public safety networks, which millions and millions of dollars are spent on, but now these POC radios worked in that area. I call BS on it. Now, that's a personal opinion. I told you the first episode, I'll say when it's a personal opinion. And the reason I think it's a personal opinion is because these companies that sell POC services, as their main goal, as their main line of service, are going to tell you anything to sell these radios. That's a fact, okay? And you can't tell me, once again, you can't tell me that first responders, public safety agencies, they have no access to the networks. But yet, these POC radios do, that you basically buy a year's worth of service, and then it goes from there. Yeah, I don't, no, I'm sorry. My opinion is that is being called BS. So, once again, I tell you when I think it's my opinion, this is my opinion out there. But now let's go back over to how POC radios work a little bit more. So I told you already that it requires the internet. It requires IP connectivity. That's a better way to say it in this case. Because people are be like, I don't need the Wi-Fi at home to surf the internet. On my phone, I can go to my carrier's network. Correct. Same things with POC radios. Vice versa happens. If I don't have access to T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, whatever network you're using, I can go onto the Wi-Fi network and my phone will still work. Same thing with these POC radios. What these POC radios are doing is they're basically giving you data, and it's giving you data for voice, and sometimes there's like little other things tied into it also too, such as like text messaging or whatever the case may be. But for the most part, they are designed just to be voice only. Now, what they're doing is when you key up, like a normal radio, when you push to talk button on the radio, with a regular RF radio, and what I mean like RF radio is like a business radio, not a POC radio. And I'm kind of like, I want to pump the brakes, because there are some people that are saying, and these companies have said it too, no, they are just like a two-way radio, but instead of using VHF or UHF bands on there, they're using the cellular bands to do the same job as your radio does on a system. Well, okay, yeah, I guess technically. But once again, radios, traditional two-way radios, do not necessarily need a network to work. We can go radio to radio. POC radios do not have that built in inherently. And if they do, there are some hybrid or dual mode radios out there where they can operate VHF or UHF via RF, and then you can push a button and go over to the POC side, and then it goes up to the networks. Yes, those radios do exist, but if it's a POC only radio that runs off of cellular networks or needs a SIM card to operate, you don't have a direct-to-rec radio operation kind of thing in there. Now, what they do is they sell you the service, which understandably, and what that service has done is it's broken down sort of like into a trunked radio system on there. So what it is that basically within your account, within your group of people that you have on there, everybody's like assigned an ID. Alrighty, and the IDs can vary in size or length. Really, I mean, I think like my ID in one of my radios was like 1374217. It was like, okay, it's like a 7-digit number, because every time you bring in a customer or subscriber or a user or something like that, they're assigned a number. Now, what you have in this case with POC radios is much like what a trunked radio system would have in there. And that means you have a group or you have private call or one-to-one. Now, for those of you that are my Nextel friends, and I say that kind of dating myself, Nextel used to have Direct Connect. That's what they used to call it. And what, in essence, Direct Connect was communication through the Nextel network, but you only were talking one person to one person. Sorry, I had to take a drink. So you were talking one person to one person. Then they did have Group Connect, and Group Connect was as one person to many people. Now, Nextel did that as a marketing thing and a scheming thing because Direct Connect was free, because it tied up, just one to one person on the network. Whereas when you would use Group, if let's picture Minneapolis, okay, Minneapolis, St. Paul, all right. If I was going to talk on Group Connect and I was going to talk to 5 more people, they could be all around Minneapolis, St. Paul area, but I'm tying up a spot on those towers to talk to those other 5 people. So what Nextel did is they charged you money for that. Alrighty, that's how Group Connect came. When we look at the two-way radio world, it's a little different. More of the time, you see, okay, you are charged per month and you get Group, so everybody's on there. You key up and you talk to whoever, but then they charge you money for Direct Connect or direct mode or a private call mode, sometimes what people will call it, because that takes spot up on your tower and people can't use the system at that point in time. So, digressing back to POCs. So then POC radios, they have that group functionality on there. You can set the group name. So, maybe we go ahead and make the communications and conversation talk group. So we'll call it the CNC talk group. So I'm using POC radios. Anybody that's on the CNC talk group or the CNC group will hear when I key up on CNC. But then once again, if I wanted to go direct or private call, I could just talk to one person only, and no one else is going to hear that in a group. Now, that's all selectable through the front of the radio on there. You select it just like a channel on there, maybe push a button, whatever the case may be. It's going to be very similar to a radio on there. So that kind of functionality is like a radio on there. People understand that. And I hate to repeat what I just said, but sometimes people think like, oh, I got to dial a number, I got to do something. No, because these are designed to act like radios, okay? My private ID, that number that I rattled off earlier, the group ID, you don't have to dial that and hit send. You just switch it on the little channel dial on the radio, and then you're on that group, you key up. That's like doing the call button, right? The send button, and you hey, blah, 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 blah. That's kind of how POC radios work in that regards. Now, POC radios, once again, are a twofold thing. They need access to a POC server, right? So whether the server's in the cloud or whether the server is on the ground or whatever, in like an actual physical server somewhere, you need to access that network. So there's money involved in that as a subscription service. Then you need data subscription, right? You need the data. You need the data so that when the POC device is turned on, that it has that gateway, that carrier to go out and go to the internet and talk on that kind of thing, through the network, right? To get up there. So that's the access point, if you want to say, for it on there. And once again, it could be, once again, a Wi-Fi connection, or it could be a cellular connection. Maybe they're going to be SIM card based. Okay, that's usually how a lot of them are. But that is how a POC works. Or I should say POC radio works. But, once again, if you don't have the infrastructure, if you don't have the data access, these POC radios are going to be a POS, right? They're not going to work. And that's where we make concern. That's where we have to educate people. I've known some people that have purchased POC radios in the past They weren't aware of the offerings of JJK Connect on their JJK Communications on their JJK Elite service, all right, which offers POC service. They didn't know that. And what they did is they went up to northern Wisconsin. They went up to northern Minnesota, where there's no cell service in some areas up there. And the phones, the devices, the POC devices wouldn't work. They said, God, my phone doesn't work, but these will work because they work everywhere. And no, they didn't. No, they didn't. That's the caveat. That's the thing you got to be aware of. Now, before I move on to the other thing about this whole thing on there, are POC radios bad? No, I don't want you to think that I'm anti-POC radios. I have my own POC radios. I use them a lot and everything. I don't want you to think I'm there. But they're great in like controlled and urban environments. They're great for that long distance where you have it. They're not an MCOM type device. They're not a off-grid type device because you have to be on the grid. You still have to be connected on there. And the service that I use, obviously, is JJK Elite. JJK Elite service is a POC type radio service. But with some POC services, at least the JJK Elite is, JJK Elite has a tie-in to the RF networks. So when you go on a JJK Elite program or plan, you can use or activate the JJK Elite X feature. And that X is the crossover from the POC platform to the RF platform. That's how things are different. That's how things can communicate differently. But one of the flaws of POC radios is what was found by the United States Secret Service around the UN building this past week. Now, if you're watching on the tube, you're going to see this picture, and I'm going to describe it for those who are listening to the podcast versus actually watching YouTube on there. But what you do is you see these racks, I mean, literally racks of things, like storage racks, metal storage racks. And on these metal storage racks are these like square boxes. They almost look like a briefcase kind of opened up, but there's no top to the briefcase. I'll go into the more what this kit is in a second here. But with that being said, it has a bunch of antennas on there. And it's hard to see in this picture, but go out and Google U.S. Secret Service SIM card discovery. And in this picture on there, so if you're listening on one of the podcast channels, go Google that. You're not going to get in trouble. Don't worry. Black SUVs are not going to pull up and come out or anything like that. Because they're here dealing with this stuff. But do that, and then what you're going to see is that it looks like little tabs or something in this like case with the cell phone antennas or antennas around it. What those are actual SIM cards. So the SIM card, what we need in our phones, okay, these are plugged into there, and all those antennas on there are the antennas, the cellular radios for all those SIM cards. Now, why is this important, John? What are you trying to tell me here? Why should this be amazing or interesting? Well, what they were doing is that in this picture, you can just, the picture I see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Let's say 25 of these, in the picture at least, that I can count, of these little SIM card trays. And I'm going to have to say that probably each of those SIM card trays, have at least 50 SIM cards in them. Now, even if you're bad at math like I am, 25 trays with 50 SIM cards a tray, they're all active. They can simulate, or they could attack a cellular network and do almost a DDoS, direct denial of service. For that, they can jam the cellular networks. They could take down cellular networks because of traffic. They can overload the capacity. Now, these were found around the UN along with some other places around there. And I want to say, I should have written it down. I should have fact-checked this. I do apologize. I want to say that there was close to a 34 radius mile around the UN that they found these different devices at. Now, I'm not no cellular engineer. I used to do with cellular stuff way back in the day. It was early digital Nextel stuff too. It was really simple and easy back then. It's very complicated now. I'm not going to lie that. But think of it this way. You have 25 of these devices with 50 SIM cards in there. Okay? Just even say 10. Just say 10 devices with 50 SIM cards. That's 500, in essence, cellular subscribers, we'll call it on there. Because those SIM cards are represented as a subscriber to the network. If you have 10 trays with 50 of those, that's like 500 cell phone users. And if all of those SIM cards light up and they start sending data to the system, data, text messaging, telephone calls, whatever, that's going to overload the system and literally shut down the cellular networks. Now, this is concerning on a lot of levels because as time has gone on, we started to put more trust and more resilience into a public network, right? Cell phones, those kind of things like that on there. You know, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, all those. You know, AT&T has FirstNet, and T-Mobile has T-Slice, and Verizon has first responder priority. All those kind of things. That's great. That's going to kick you off in traffic congestion. But the problem is that with all these hitting the network, there's no way to decongest the network, okay? Because even if they start to turn off the subscriber units, like they're saying, okay, wait a minute here, we got these 50 subscribers that we don't need, we're going to slow them to lower priority, have the other people come in. If they're jamming the network, they're jamming the network with data and text messaging and all these kind of things like that on there, they're going to jam the frequencies also too. We're not dealing with just a few select frequencies on a tower, one tower. No, with the amount of things that these were on here, these are jamming the cellular networks, frequencies, data traffic, all this kind of stuff like that out there. Now, kind of sounds scary. Kind of to a degree is. Not to go saying throw out your cell phones, let's wrap tinfoil around our head. We're not saying that. I'm not saying that or condoning that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just letting people be aware of it, that this was a high probable situation, a high danger situation. Now, how does that tie in with today's episode, John? Let's bridge the two together here, okay, because we're coming close to the end of the show. And here's how it is. The POC network, the POC radios, if network congestion takes place and you can't access the tower because of network congestion, if we have a situation where there's a lot of network traffic, not congested, but a heavy network traffic, the device may not connect. Or worst case, if the tower goes down completely, these POC devices, they don't have their primary means of communication, which is commercial networks. It's not a private public safety network. It is a commercial network. It's the same thing that if you're watching me on YouTube right now, or you're listening to me on the podcast, odds are you're probably on your phone and you're streaming that data content. Or maybe you're at home doing this, but guess what? So many people are going to like cellular-based home internet on there that guess what? Now that's coming off of the towers go down, you lose internet. You lose the ability to use POC radios. So that's the concern about POC radios. That's the concern about having network access. Once again, there are trade-offs. POC radios are going to give you a larger range because you can have the context of the using them across the U.S., you know. Once again, someone's in California, someone's in New York. They both have access. Boom, they're connecting down the network. That's the advantage of POC radios. However, the disadvantage is that it requires a commercial network. It requires some sort of internet connectivity for that to actually take place. Where if we take a look at radios now, traditional two-way radios, they don't require on the network, but they're not going to be able to talk as far as these devices were. You're not going to be talking handheld to handheld across the entire United States without requiring some sort of infrastructure. So that's the advantage of traditional two-way radios. Once again, the disadvantage is that it doesn't have the ungodly range that POC radios have. So what is the solution? Because when I talk about POC radios with people and stuff, they tend to say, John, what's the solution on there? Is there a solution? And to be honest with you, that solution is kind of looking at what the needs are. What is your situation going to be? So getting into opinion mode here, if you need to talk from coast to coast and you have network access, POC radios are great. If you're going up to northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, places that don't have cellular access, POC radios are going to do you no good. You're going to need to go back to traditional radio. Now, with this final little thought here, and we're going to start to wrap it up here in a moment, is that people go ahead and say, you know what, John? That's it. I told you, when the internet goes down. Well, guess what? The internet is not going down in these examples that I gave you today. Your access to the internet in your immediate area might be down, but just because you can't access the internet on your cell phone does not mean that the entire internet is down across the world. It means that your access to that internet is currently unavailable. Well, I'm going to tell you something here. I'm looking at the big clock on the wall, and I'm going to tell you what, we've hit that 30-minute mark. We're actually over the 30-minute mark a little bit. I want to thank everybody for tuning into this podcast. And I didn't want to sound like it was too rambling and some crazy old man like, get off the porch. You know, the digital is the devil. No, it's not any of that today or anything. But it was kind of an interesting thing because I see this, like I said, I see so many times these POC radios being the end-all, be-all and stuff. And if that was the case, you would see public safety. You'd see everybody else ditching all these other radios and going to the internet kind of based radios. And it's not happening, folks. Supplementing, but not happening out there. So with that, everybody, I want everybody to take care. Thank you for tuning into the show. We're going to be back next week. We're going to have our co-host again, so you don't have to listen to me babble. Take care then, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next channel.